It was the peak of a brutal heat wave when the first crack of lightning split the sky, but that wasn't what made Evan's phone buzz urgently against his desk. No, it was the alert from the motion sensor installed inside his underground storm shelter, the one tucked discreetly beneath a patch of fake lawn in his backyard. This wasn't normal. It wasn't a stray branch or a raccoon. The live feed blinked onto Evan's screen, and there she was, Patricia, queen of the HOA, flashlight in one hand, bolt cutters dangling from her wrist, standing wide-eyed in his shelter like she'd just stumbled into Area 51. And then it happened. The heavy door hissed shut behind her with a mechanical thunk. The biometric locks clicked into place, trapping her 3 feet underground, just as the thunderstorm began howling overhead. Evan blinked, then chuckled in pure disbelief. Patricia, who had spent months lecturing him about neighborhood harmony and aesthetics compliance, had just broken into his federally funded emergency shelter. And now she was locked inside it, panicking like a cat in a bathtub. For a moment, it was almost cinematic. Evan could have grabbed popcorn and simply enjoyed the show. The truth was, this mess had been brewing for months. Ever since Evan installed the shelter fully legal, fully permitted, Patricia had been sending a steady stream of passive-aggressive HOA letters, claiming it was a visual blight, even though it was completely invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. But Patricia didn't care about legality. She cared about control. Earlier that day, while Evan was working remotely from his favorite coffee shop, he had spotted Patricia and her 2 loyal sidekicks, Ron and Debbie, snooping around his backyard via his security app. He smirked, texted a few neighbors about the Patricia Patrol, and went back to his cappuccino, thinking little of it. He hadn't known Patricia planned to escalate from passive-aggressiveness to full-on trespassing. Her first mistake? Thinking she could breach a hatch designed to withstand F5 tornadoes with dollar store bolt cutters. The storm shelter had a tamper detection system. Anyone forcing the hatch had a 30-second window to scramble inside, after which the shelter locked down permanently until reset from inside. It was built for survival, not snooping. And now Patricia was learning that the hard way. Inside, her triumphant smirk faded quickly. She had expected to snap a few incriminating photos, send them to the HOA's lawyer, and bask in her self-righteousness. Instead, she found herself trapped in a bright, high-tech safe room lined with shelves of emergency supplies, blinking cameras, and blinking warning lights. She screamed for Ron and Debbie, who wisely remained outside the fence, peeking and probably already regretting ever coming. Watching from his phone, Evan felt a twinge of pity. Almost. By the time Evan strolled leisurely home, even stopping for a drink at the gas station, storm clouds had turned the sky nearly black. Across the street, Ron and Debbie huddled under an umbrella like guilty teenagers. They waved awkwardly at Evan, who returned a casual nod and headed to the disguised hatch control panel in his shed. He patched into the shelter's speaker system, letting Patricia's frantic shrieks echo through the air. "This is unlawful imprisonment. I demand immediate release," she bellowed. Evan, as calm as if he were ordering takeout, replied through the mic. "You are trespassing on a federally protected emergency facility. Please remain calm. Authorities have been notified." Patricia's shriek that followed could have shattered glass. Evan winced slightly, but couldn't wipe the grin from his face. And no, he hadn't even called the cops yet. But he was about to. This was going to be legendary. 15 minutes later, 2 sheriff's SUVs pulled up, their red and blue lights slicing through the heavy gloom. 4 deputies stepped out, professional but visibly curious. After all, this wasn't exactly a typical suburban call. Evan met them at the curb, cool as ever, handing over a thick packet of permits, security footage screenshots, and a copy of the federal disaster mitigation grant. The lead deputy, a stocky man with a dry expression, skimmed the papers and nodded approvingly. "So, let me get this straight," he said, glancing up at the black sky. "She cut her way into your private, federally protected storm shelter during an active storm warning and got herself locked inside." Evan shrugged, suppressing a smile. "That's about the size of it." The deputy shook his head slowly. "You have footage?" Evan tapped his phone. Patricia's shrill demands for non-expired bottled water blasted from the speaker. The deputies chuckled. "All right, let's go get her." Approaching the hatch, the officers used the emergency override to unlock the shelter. The heavy door creaked open, and Patricia stumbled out into the rain-soaked, disheveled, flip-flops squelching in the mud, her live, laugh, love t-shirt plastered to her skin. Before she could launch into a rant about civil inspections and community rights, the lead deputy cut her off. "Ma'am, you are under investigation for unlawful entry, tampering with protected emergency infrastructure, and interfering with a federally designated disaster site." Hands where I can see them. The shift in Patricia's face was almost cartoonish. She tried to argue and failed miserably. Moments later, 2 deputies cuffed her and led her toward the patrol car. For the first time since Evan had moved into the neighborhood, Patricia was blissfully, gloriously silent. Ron and Debbie tried to slink away unnoticed. Evan caught them with a polite razor-sharp smile and quipped loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. "Don't worry, folks. There's still plenty of room in the shelter if anyone else wants to inspect it." The ripple of laughter from the neighbors was pure gold. Part 3. The Fallout. As the storm battered the streets and the last of the flashing lights faded, Evan stood calmly under his porch overhang, sipping coffee, watching the chaos play out. The neighborhood buzzed like a kicked beehive. By morning, everyone had heard about Patricia's arrest. Even the local news caught wind of it. A teenager's blurry video of Patricia's dramatic extraction had gone viral, sparking a wave of memes dubbing her the storm shelter bandit. By noon, Ron and Debbie sent a frantic community-wide email attempting to distance themselves. "We had no knowledge of Patricia's plans. We deeply respect homeowner rights. Blah, blah, blah." Evan laughed when he read it, especially because the email included an urgent invite to an emergency HOA meeting. He decided to go, not out of spite, out of principle. He gathered every ridiculous fine, every passive-aggressive email, every HOA notice Patricia had ever sent. He even printed screenshots of group chats where Patricia bragged about making examples of non-compliant homeowners. That night at the community clubhouse, the vibe was electric. Neighbors packed in, filling folding chairs and lining the walls. Todd and Debbie sat stiffly at the front, an empty chair Patricia's glaringly vacant between them. When Evan's turn to speak came, he didn't shout. He didn't have to. He simply laid down the thick folder on the table with a satisfying thud, and in a calm voice, detailed everything. The legal permits, the federal grant, the tamper-proof design of the shelter, the video footage, Patricia's long campaign of harassment. The room shifted from muttered disbelief to open outrage. Even Patricia's few defenders were now looking at their shoes. When Evan finished, a neighbor immediately motioned to dissolve the HOA leadership entirely. The vote wasn't even close. The board was out. Patricia's reign of terror was over. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood felt like it had been washed clean. People smiled more. Kids played freely. Gardens bloomed where suspicious eyes once lurked. Patricia's house went dark, a "for sale by owner" sign skewed awkwardly in her yard. She had been charged with criminal trespass, tampering with emergency equipment, obstruction, and more, with federal investigators hinting at even steeper charges coming. Rumor had it she tried to sue the HOA and was laughed out of court. Evan declined a leadership position on the new HOA board but agreed to sit on an advisory committee. He figured a few small safeguards wouldn't hurt. And then, one sunny Saturday, the neighbors threw a spontaneous barbecue at the park. No mandatory attendance, no HOA rules, just laughter and burgers and kids on scooters. Toward the end of the evening, Evan's close neighbors unveiled a surprise. They had commissioned a local woodworker to create a permanent sign near Evan's shelter. Private property unauthorized inspections may result in complimentary lock-in. Have a nice stay. Beneath it, a small cartoon tornado chased a stick figure with oversized sunglasses. Evan laughed until his ribs ached, genuinely touched. As the stars came out and laughter echoed across the park, Evan leaned against his truck, breathing in the fresh, clean air. No clipboard warriors. No HOA tyranny. Just a neighborhood, free and alive again. He smiled quietly to himself. This was the life he had built. This was home. And this time, no one was taking it away from him.